So we're talking episode 5 of Doom Patrol, titled Finger Patrol, where we see the play date from hell between Baby Doll and Dorothy. Cliff wants to get some upgrades, Larry's hanging out with the family, and the candle maker visits the underground. We're going to talk about that and much more. Season 2, Episode 5 of Doom Patrol was titled Finger Patrol. Dorothy finally finds a friend in Baby Doll until playtime goes awry. Cliff discovers that Niles plans to give him human-like upgrades. Vic devises a plan to win Roni back. After Rita has a lousy audition, Larry brings her along to meet his family and learns more about the life he left behind. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of Doom Patrol Season 2, Episode 5, titled Finger Patrol. Very excited to talk about it. So these are spoiler reviews and discussions, so if you haven't seen the latest episode, go check it out, enjoy yourself, come back and watch these reviews. But if you have seen this episode, you're in the right spot. Before we dive into the spoiler discussion, as you can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my social media accounts. If you're new to the channel, definitely subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, helps out the channel, and I also really appreciate it. And last but not least, let me know in the comments what you thought of episode 5, what you think about Candlemaker, seeing him for the second time this season, but really getting an idea of his powers. What did you think about the play date between Dorothy and Baby Doll? And also Roni, what are we thinking about Roni, guys? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and do you want to see Cliff get these upgrades? Let's talk about it in the comments and have some fun discussions down there. So yeah, this was a really solid episode in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed last week's episode, but I love when our group's together. Yes, I love Danny and the Danningtons, and when we have these kind of one-off episodes to kind of take our group and implement new characters, but I just love when we get to hang out with our group, and I love the different pairings, like this episode, Cliff and Cyborg. You know, we get Dorothy and Baby Doll, and of course the classic Rita and Larry. So very fun episode, but very terrifying at the same time, and I think this episode really solidifies the idea that Dorothy will be this season's villain. We're going to break it all down, but let's start off with this recap. So the first 10 minutes, we get a lot of stuff, some big stuff kind of happens. We see the stage is kind of set in regards to this episode. We see Cyborg has a night terror, aka wet dream, as Cliff calls it, about Roni, and we see that he really wants to make this relationship with Roni work out, and we're going to talk about her a little bit later, but we get that as the kind of the opening sequence. Jane and Niles goes back to their therapy sessions where they're kind of discussing maybe a new way to map out the underground and really kind of hear out the needs of the other personalities in the underground. But in the midst of all that, we get the return of Baby Doll, who is introduced to Dorothy, and we see them kind of hanging out and seeing their personalities kind of meet, and you know, all that stuff kind of plays out. Rita wants to join a play. We kind of get a little bit of Rita and Larry doing their background. I will say that story up to a certain point wasn't working for me as far as entertainment, but I enjoy seeing Rita and Larry hang out because they're the dynamic duo. They are the best of friends in this series. Cliff may get some upgrades, which will be very interesting. He wants to feel more human. And we also get a little bit of, as I mentioned last week, we haven't been hearing much about Niles and him dying. So I don't know when the show is going to finally address like the immortality that Niles wants to be with Dorothy. Like they haven't brought up Mr. Time, any ways of keeping him alive. So a little bit of hints of that, but not as much as I'm looking forward to. But the big thing is, like I said, Cliff wants to feel more like a human. And like I said, Larry joins, sets up a day with his son to clean out his dead son's house, and Rita tags along. So some very interesting stuff within the first 10 minutes, but let's go more in depth in this episode in regards to the breakdown. So Dorothy and Baby Doll, they're playing around. Like I said, the play date from hell. They're playing around, running around, playing all these games. They go outside, and Dorothy's kind of tired, and she's like, man, I really can't keep up with Baby Doll in regards to all this energy she has. But she shows her imaginary friend, the creature that we met last season with the cave woman and Niles and all that stuff, and the mythical creature that we didn't get a name for, if I'm not mistaken, in season 1. But the name that Dorothy gave him is Manny, and we see Manny introduced to Baby Doll, and in perfect Baby Doll fashion, she scratches his face and makes him go away, and that definitely pissed off Dorothy. And we'll talk about a little bit later what happens when you piss off Dorothy. We've seen what happens, but we're going to talk about it in this episode. The best part of this show for me, in this particular episode, as to say, was the interaction with Cliff and Cyborg. We got some of that last season, but not as much as I may have wanted, because they're similar stories. Man turned machine, and Cliff can learn some things from Cyborg in regards to how he handles that kind of duality and that battle between, again, the machine taking over the man inside the machine. So we see Cliff wants to speed up the process of Niles introducing the idea of giving him upgrades, giving him the feeling of touch and being able to feel more human and get back to his somewhat normal life in a certain extent before he dies. As Niles kind of points out, it may take decades. So we'll see if those upgrades can be sped up a little bit, because we see that Cliff wants to talk to Styles Stone, aka also known as Cyborg's daddy. So very interesting here, because we get the return of Mr. Styles Stone, and the show. Let me know how you all felt about the return of Styles Stone, because last time we saw Styles, him and Cyborg weren't on the same page. They had some things to kind of work out. So I assume those issues were addressed off screen, because again, last time we saw him, he was in a hospital bed after being almost beaten to death by his son, and then also Cyborg finding out what he did. So I assume they hashed their issues out off screen, or there may be some more story to kind of dive into, but they seem to be kind of, friendly to a certain extent. We see Cliff asks Styles to help him do the upgrade, because we know that Cyborg has feelings, he can touch things, he can feel things. Cliff wants to do the exact same thing, so we see him asking Styles, and he says, he says, no, I don't want to be accessory to what Niles did to you, accessory to murder. So he declines him. I think that storyline will come back up, but he says no initially to help him out. But we see my favorite part of the episode kind of established, in the car. We see they're in Michigan. We see that Cyborg spying on Roni, seeing what she's up to. But before that, Cyborg tells Cliff that this was the neighborhood he used to patrol, which Cliff starts to think, oh, we can be a little tag team duo. We can be... It cracks me up. We can be Steel and Stone, and I love, and we'll talk about that montage here in a bit, but we see Cyborg again is secretly spying on his kind of love interest in the show, Roni, and Cliff gives him some kind of love advice to get his groove back, and we see that he goes up there and talks to Roni, and she tells him about her past, and she used to have abilities, which I'm very interested in learning more about her backstory. Did she used to work with the Bureau of Normancy, or is she with another group that may be pose a threat to our Doom Patrol? Let me know your thoughts on Roni. Should we trust her? Does she have a dark, sinister story? We know that she killed some people back in the day, but it was part of a program. Let me know what you all think that program may be. But we see him getting his groove back, but in the midst of that, we see Cliff having this kind of montage thought, this production kind of Lethal Weapon-ish 70s montage of Cliff or Steel and Stone, and I just thought that was just so funny, and I was just laughing the entire time when we saw that montage. That was easily my favorite part, but I love that moment. And we see Cliff as he's kind of daydreaming. He goes out of the daydream and sees these people trying to steal a car. He punches one of the dudes, and this is the first time we've seen Robot Man Cliff having like a fighting scene since the first season when he killed those Nazis in the third or fourth episode of last season. But he punches the dude, and he slices this one dude's fingers off. He's apologizing because, again, he can't control some of his mechanical aspects of being a robot. So he takes the finger, which, again, leads to that story of him wanting to be more human, him keeping that finger and maybe have Niles accelerate that process and become more of a human. But, again, that whole 70s montage was incredible. Going back to Larry and Rita, we see that Larry, again, is at his dead son's house, cleaning out the son with his son is still alive, Paul, and we introduced to Dexter and his little son, and we see all that kind of play out. But really the big moment within this scene is, Larry tells his son that he is gay, and in return, his son Paul tells him what happened to their mother, that she, was tried to find other love interests, and, they moved from house to house and all this different stuff. But really the big thing was, his Paul really doesn't like his family. His family's cursed, as he says, but the biggest thing was Paul has regret towards his dad, has hatred towards his dad. And as he's saying that, we see these kind of government agency pop up. Again, I don't know if this is the department of the Bureau of Normancy, if this is a new department that's kind of taken over that department with everything that happened last season, but they try to take out, I don't think it was them, because they would have probably had the proper gear to take on Negative Man, and they didn't seem to know who he was. But we see Negative Man save the day, and then Paul, Larry's son, has the nerve after whatever that department or those special forces were, they were shooting at, Paul's grandson and his son, and he's blaming Rita and blaming Larry in particular of his son. I don't know if Dexter's gonna die from being shot in the stomach, but Paul's like, you did this, this is your fault. It's like, no, Paul, you were the one that called the agency and they were just shooting around, like it's their fault. But we'll see if that storyline comes back up again. So far this season, Larry and Rita, just like my biggest flaws last season, they don't have the richest stories, in my opinion. I know a lot of people, I love the story that we get with Larry and him coming out and being himself now, and I appreciate all that stuff. But in regards to just like compared to Cliff, definitely compared to Jane, compared to Niles, compared to Cyborg, compared to Dorothy even, their stories just aren't as interesting to me as they could be. So I'm hoping that we maybe dive more into this Paul relationship and he gets, we have this complexity of these two trying to learn each other and forgive each other. But I'm not gonna lie, the Larry stuff so far hasn't been working all the way for me. And then also Rita, this whole, she wants to get into play. I get it. I love the actress that plays her, but her story and her mother and everything, we're still getting little hints of that. But their two stories to me haven't been the most interesting. I know there's a lot of big fans of Larry and Rita, and I'm one of them, but their stories are the weakest in my opinion. So I'm hoping that we get more interesting stuff with them later on. But as we wrap up the episode, we see that the show finishes up with Baby Doll telling Dorothy that her dad's evil, because earlier in the episode, we see Hammerhead telling Jane that, what do you think Niles is going to do when it becomes a choice between picking Dorothy and picking Baby Doll, or more importantly, picking you? And we see that kind of play out. So we see that Baby Doll is upset because Dorothy is getting the attention of Niles. So she tells Dorothy, your dad's bad. He's not only bad, he's evil, which definitely pisses off Dorothy. And Dorothy like smacks her in the face and say, let's play hide and go seek. And they run downstairs. We see this scene plays out where Dorothy hides in this furnace. Baby Doll is threatened. She locks her in there. She uses her power. Dorothy summons Manny. Manny is killed by the fire demon. I assume Manny's dead. I think Manny is officially dead, which kind of sucks. I thought that Manny was like a force to reckon with, but the fire creature that is summoned by Jane or Kay kills it. Again, I believe Manny is officially dead. And in return, the Candlemaker tells Dorothy, make a wish in that demonic voice. I gotta look up who plays that voice. That voice is very creepy and very menacing. But we see that she makes a wish. We see that the Candlemaker makes his full appearance. We saw a little bit of him in the first episode in that carnival scene with Niles and him taking out everybody and killing everyone at the carnival. But we see him in full effect, right? And we see, I don't know if it killed the fire demon, but it definitely distinguished their fire. It punches Hammerhead, but it kills Baby Doll. So this is really going to shake things up, because Baby Doll, she may be annoying, but is one of the 64 personalities that protects Kay and is someone that Kay created. So this is really going to shake things up for next week in regards to how is Jane going to take that now. Is she going to really now want to question the loyalty between her and Niles picking Dorothy over everyone else? As we know, that's what his main goal was. That's why he created the Doom Patrol, was for Dorothy to stay immortal. So that was very fascinating. It'll be very interesting to see Hammerhead. She's going to be pissed about what just happened. So in regards to Candlemaker, again, we see him in the flesh. We see what he does. Dorothy makes the wish, as Niles tells her to never make the wish, and we'll see what punishment or consequences come of that. So wrapping up this discussion review, what will happen now, again, like I just mentioned, but the Bureau of Normalcy, was that them that came to get Larry? Was that who Roni worked for back in the day? Let me know your thoughts there. Are we going to learn more about Niles and his immortality and it's some type of serum or some type of way to stay there for Dorothy? Or will Niles die by the end of the season? Let me know your thoughts there. Again, we talked about Roni. And then Cliff, will he get his upgrades? Will he become human? Will it take decades? Will it take a couple episodes to figure it out? Will Stylus Stone agree to help him for some reason why? Cyborg convinces him to help. We'll see in future episodes. But I enjoyed this episode again. Rita and Larry, not the strongest points, but the montage that we get with Steel and Stone was great. And again, like I said, the consequences that come of what Candlemaker did in the underground will really shake things up with the dynamic of this group. And again, Jane and Niles, what is Niles going to do with Dorothy after what she did. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching these reviews. I love this show. I have such a great time talking to you all about this show. So make sure you leave your comments below. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Keep an eye out for some content coming in the next few days. We got Netflix movie Old Guard, we got Palm Springs on Hulu, we got Greyhound on Apple TV Plus, and I have a watch along for another superhero type of show or movie, I should say, celebrating its 1-year anniversary more recently. And that is my next watch along for Spider-Man Far From Home. So that's this Saturday, 7 p.m. Central Time. So definitely tune in for that. Hope you all are staying safe. We'll see you next week for next week's review. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you soon.